Hello everyone, I am the Transit Van Thrifter and welcome to part 1 of a 4-part video series documenting my thriftcation from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts. I'm going to be showing you some of the stuff I found in the thrift stores, yard sales, and then give you a van life and price breakdown of everything. Here we have a Sony Walkman and a realistic CB radio. The radio ended up not being worth anything, but the Walkman was definitely a good find, a great start to the trip. Coming around the corner here, I come into a section of the more electronics, and I end up picking up the phone set right there. It's a good Panasonic brand, always keep an eye out for those. Don't think there was anything else that was too spectacular in this section, but I always gotta take another look because you never know what you'll miss the first time around. Coffee machines, I've had some luck with those, but that was a more standard brand. Some of the upper scale models I've sold for $150, $200 in the past. Checking out this little calculator, always keep an eye out for those as well. TI-83s and stuff like that. Coming up is a Marlins bag. Thought that could have been something, but I ended up putting it back later whenever I come back through the store. The shelves are actually pretty filled in this store compared to some of the other ones I will end up going to, so I'm glad I got to nose around and see what I could find. Then I decided to head back towards the VHSs and the DVDs because you always got to keep an eye out for brand new VHS now. That's become a very popular market. And I did not end up finding anything of value in here. There were a few brand new ones, but none of them were Marvel or horror films that are what's growing in popularity. I then go over to the DVD section and briefly look through some DVDs. I don't spend too much time scanning each one just because it's too labor intensive. Briefly look through the CDs. I know we don't buy too many of those, but if one stands out, I will definitely buy it because they do sell pretty good on eBay. Another good thing to keep an eye out for that I sadly did not find here was old Pyrex. That seems to be another re-emerging market, especially some of the more rare patterns and designs. Now going into the toy section, I look for brand new board games and just sealed toys in general, and didn't find any that were particularly good. I did check out this vintage Disney beach chair, but couldn't find any sold comps on it. And I try to avoid items that I can't find exact sold comps for, or I'm not very confident that will resell. And I also check out this skateboard. The brand was okay. The wheels would have been good to take off and resell, but it was definitely too big of an item for me to get early on in the trip because I didn't know what to expect for the rest of it. I wanted to make sure I had enough space to buy any better, larger items. Looking through the toys more, I do end up finding a 2009 blue lightsaber, and this does end up working. Definitely a good find. I buy every lightsaber I can get because they're normally between $1 and $3, and I get around 20 almost every time. So definitely a good flip. So just a very easy, consistent sale. Looking around more, I found this brand new sealed Justin Bieber action figure. They asked $20 for it, which is more than it was worth on eBay, so I ended up putting that back. And here is a Spider-Man and Sinister Six wakeboard. That was kind of cool. Would have been nice for my personal collection, but ended up putting it back. Have enough stuff like that as it is. Next I go to the old costumes. These were all brand new ones they've been saving up from the rest of the season. Some vintage costumes are pretty good. Definitely Scream is a good one to keep an eye out for. Brand new ones of those. Even the masks alone are $800 if you find the right one. So definitely keep an eye out for vintage Halloween costumes. Next I go over to the clothing section. I sometimes spend a good amount of time here if I see some older items. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Now I'm looking at the shoes because I've had some decent luck with shoes since I started doing this full time. Take a quick peek through the jackets. Don't end up finding anything at this store. Some of the other stores I do find some nice jackets. Here were some old bowling shoes. They were a little too worn and the brand wasn't anything amazing, so I end up putting those back later. And coming up are a pair of Gel Venture 7 Asics. They were in overall fair condition, some dirt on the bottom, but I ended up cleaning those up. And I put those for $40, so $8 into 40 will definitely be a good sale. Just continuing down the aisle, looking at the shoes and the clothing at the same time. Kind of just a quick skim because I wanted to get some driving done that day to get further up north because this was the first thrift store I went to. These boots ended up not being anything good. Some boots I have had good luck with, so I always look up something, especially if I don't recognize the brand. It doesn't hurt to put in your cart and look it up. Just flipping through some of the shirts. I don't ever spend the time to go through every single shirt. Even though I've had some fantastic luck with t-shirts in particular, old 90s band t-shirts and wrestling t-shirts. I've had those sell over $200 pretty consistently, but I sadly did not find any of those here. Here was a Star Wars Boba Fett hoodie. Just, I thought it was kind of cool, so I ended up putting that back. So then I just take another quick glance through on the way out and don't end up finding anything too spectacular. And on. So here is the next thrift store. I forget exactly where this one was located, but I saw a good sale on VHS and DVDs on the door, so I knew I was going to go back and check those out. A lot of the thrift stores in this area did have a lot of sales going on, which I was very surprised about because my local Goodwills and community aids don't always have the best sales. So I'm now walking to the back to the electronics because I always go there first, just because those are my biggest profit items most often. Just looking around, getting to where I need to go. I've been getting into the golf clubs. I've sold a few of those for upwards of $100, some Callaways and other good brands. So I always take a quick skim just to make sure there's no hidden gems among the golf clubs. End up finding a few later on in the trip, but nothing at this thrift store. They're already putting out their Christmas decorations. They have lots of that stockpiled, so they'll be putting that out rather quickly just so they can get it out of their inventory. This thrift store did not have too many electronics. Their shelves were pretty empty throughout the entirety of the store. And I don't end up getting anything here from what I remember. This Mr. Coffee machine did end up being opened and they just resealed it. So some of those brand new can be very expensive machines, so definitely keep an eye out. Little analog TV converter box doesn't end up being anything good. Some games, but none of those were sealed or anything spectacular. Same with the ones on these shelves. Just pretty standard thrift items, no unique finds. Just keep on looking around for Pyrex and other vintage glassware, but I never spend too much time looking through every single piece just because there's too many brands that I don't know enough about yet, but I'm still teaching myself that industry a little bit more. I have been doing fantastic with books, so I always scan those over. I know which ones to avoid and certain bindings to keep an eye out for. I've sold some books for over $100, so definitely worth skimming those over and researching a bit further. Looking at the VHS tapes now, there were some brand new ones, but same as the last store, none of them were the good ones or anything particularly rare, so end up putting those back. Look through the DVDs, same thing, never too much particularly exciting, but always only takes one item to change your whole day, so I always gotta look. Now I'm going up to the men's clothing section just to look for jackets or shoes or anything that's worthwhile. Weren't too many good looking t-shirts. I can normally tell just by looking at the outside of them whether they're old or not, and then I grab them and take a look. Some of the old colorways stand out very easily. And here was one cool little jacket I found, vintage purple and yellow Reebok, vintage tags, so I ended up putting that in the cart and walking away with it. I ended up getting it for around $8, I think, and I have it listed for $40 right now, or we'll have it listed. I always skim through the jackets. I've found random military jackets worth $120 and leather jackets that are good. And if I don't recognize the brand, I'll try to look it up and try and find sold comps on it, just because some of these weird micro brands are very popular and collectible. And bomber jackets like that I've always kept an eye out for. Just some shoes, rubber work boots, so I ended up putting those back. They weren't spectacular in any way. Little toy Hot Wheels. Some of those are collectible, but this one was just worth less than what they were actually asking for it, so that ends up getting put back. Just looking around more, seeing if anything sticks out to me. Nothing else really comes up at this store. It was just all very standard stuff, and it was all way overpriced, which was a theme for much of the trip, sadly. I've seen some people have success with lamps and light fixtures, but I've always found them too fragile to ship, and I always get nervous that they will break just by the post office. No matter how much padding we put stuff in, they just always manage to break our stuff. So I try to avoid explicitly fragile items. Now on to the next one. Here is my third thrift store of the trip so far. Trying to get my cart, wiggle it in through the door there. I always try and grab ones that are on the outside just to help the employees out. I see the 40% off color tag. Definitely keep an eye out for any blue tagged items, especially when considering my prices, because that gives me more wiggle room on what I can and can't buy. I decided to go through the clothing section first, just because it was right in front of your face and I had to walk through it to get to the electronics anyways. Most thrift stores are set up that way, but sometimes it goes straight to the back, but this one had a lot of at least clean looking clothes, so I figured might as well look through those first. Here was a cool red and blue jacket that's definitely one that I would have wanted to buy, but I have too many that are exactly like it. I looked through the rest of the jackets, but they were all standard puffer jackets, trench coats, stuff like that. Nothing really unique or expensive. So after I take a brief glance through those, I go back to the men's shoe category. I try and pick brands or shoes that look like brands that I recognize, like Nike or Adidas, just to look them up again later. Here was a more unique style shoe that I hadn't seen before. It ended up not being too good of a brand, so I put those back. But here are a pair of Adidas that I ended up picking up. I should be able to get around $30 for those. They were asking like 7 or 8, but not the best margin, but still definitely worth picking up. Next, I move on to the plush, something I've quickly learned is worth at least skimming through, not spending too much time looking through every single one, but old 70s, 80s, and 90s plush like Care Bears and the weird niche TV shows. Their plush are very collectible because not a lot of them were made. So I've had some fantastic luck selling, like I said, the Care Bears for about $30 a piece if you found the right version or variant. Next, I looked through the DVDs and find a large amount of video games. These ones were all very researched by the thrift store and definitely a little bit overpriced for what they were. some of them being priced even more than what they were on eBay. So I'd still do look just to make sure there's not any oddball ones that slip through the cracks, like GameCube games or brand new sealed Wii games, but end up not finding any of those here. Here's the large stack of video games. They did have them all separated, which is definitely helpful, but that just means they generally looked up the value of most of them, unless there was a more standard one that they already knew the value of, in which case it wasn't worth anything anyways. I've had some luck with Guitar Hero games, especially when building Guitar Hero sets, but I ended up putting that one back because they were asking $5 or $6 for it. Sims is another one to keep an eye out for, especially some of the expansion sets. They are still played by a lot of people, even though it's a very, very old game. But definitely keep an eye out for those. And the moment I saw these metal shelves, I knew I wasn't going to find anything too amazing. I experienced this on my previous trip down south. Anytime they had these metal racks in the stores, it meant they couldn't pile items on the shelves, and they were more particular with what they wanted, which means the prices were more expensive and just wasn't anything really that stood out. I don't know why some stores use these compared to just long wall shelves, but every time I see those, I always think I'm not going to get anything too good. Next, I skim through the carts. They always bring out fresh carts in stores, and that's where you normally find some of your good deals because other people haven't had the chance to look everything up yet. None of these were fresh brought out when I was in the store, but they were still all unsorted and uncategorized, which means items could be hidden in there. Definitely worth looking at those. I decided to go around the back side of the houseware section because there are too many people on the front side, just to get back to where the electronics are supposed to be. And more Christmas decorations and blankets and stuff that I tend to avoid. So here's some of their more housewares items section. Some electronics. Here's a Ninja blender base. They were asking like $25 for it, which was worth even more than it would have been worth reselling. So I do end up putting that back. I look through the sunglasses to make sure there's no Oakleys hidden in there. And some keyboards are definitely good. Some of the weirdly shaped ones and the vintage Microsoft ones are good, like because they're ergonomic and a lot of people do enjoy using those. And there's nothing else that really stood out to me in this section. Some suitcases are nice, but never really to resell because shipping is too big. I do look through the bags for PlayStation bags and video game carrying cases because those are definitely worth picking up if you find them. Christmas tree stands, not worth anything in particular. Just looking around to see if anything else sticks out to me, and I don't think I found anything good. There was a little Cuisinart thing, but it was already used and opened. This thrift store actually had some items they were just selling the empty boxes for, whether someone just took the item out of the box or they decided to put the empty box out on the shelf. I do not know. I've seen that at quite a few thrift stores since I've started doing this full time. I just take one more brief look down some of the glassware section, but normally you can see if an item stands out, so on to the next one. Here's another Goodwill that I end up finding. Later on in the trip, I end up looking more for Salvation Armies and other types of thrift stores, just because the Goodwills were either too expensive or did not have enough inventory to even go in and look at. But some of the other thrift stores were definitely more popular among locals than it seemed like, in terms of how much stuff they actually had on the shelves. Now I'm cutting over to the electronics, I think, or actually I'm looking at the shoes first. And they were just common dress shoes, and some of those brands are good, but none of the ones that were here were particularly expensive. Now I'm jumping back and see the metal racks again, which is always my favorite thing to see in a thrift store. I don't know if it was just the ones that I've been to that have these that I haven't had good luck at, or if it's all the ones with these metal racks. There's some items hidden in there that are going to be pretty valuable that I find later in the store, but thrift stores that tend to pile items on the shelves and really fill up their racking normally have better deals on items, just because they're trying to flip inventory and they have a large stockpile in the back, but these shelves kind of make it difficult for them to easily fill up. Like, you can just see how little the shelves have in this video so far. And this store actually did it, their categorization by color, which I always found enjoyable to look through. It makes it harder to find stuff, but definitely makes it more fun when you do find something. Just looking through some of the Pyrex or some of the other more porcelain and glassware items, just for that one oddball that can be worth a few $100s, definitely worth keeping an eye out for. Here is a leapfrog bear toy. The box was all damaged, so I do end up putting that back. Would have been worth $20, but the condition it was in wasn't worth picking it up. Still just keeping an eye out for any homeware items that are valuable or unique and at least worth looking up, but nothing here really stands out. It all seemed to be more common items and nothing of good value. Next I get to the electronics section, which is definitely where I try to get to first. And on the top shelf there you can see a bunch of cords, and I come back to that in a second, but there's a bunch of Lenovo computer power chargers. The item I just picked up was a input switch. Old electronics from Radio Shack and some of the older stores are definitely collectible, but that was not one of them. That was a WD disc reader that was brand new sealed, but comps on it just weren't high enough really. Definitely gonna keep on looking through the VHS just to hopefully find that $100, $200, $300 VHS tape that I've been seeing people finding. It's definitely a rapidly growing market, and a lot of resellers are always keeping an eye out for stuff like that. But this one did not have anything particularly nice. So I keep on looking around through the CDs briefly, mostly focusing on the VHS. DVDs, try and keep an eye out for hidden video games, because a lot of the cases do look the same, and some of these stores do put GameCube games and PS2 games among their normal DVDs and don't separate them. Then I go back to the electronics section to pick up those Lenovo power cords that I had seen. Eventually I'll get to it. There they are. There's 4 or 5 of them there, and they're only $2.99 a piece, and I got them listed for $15.99. So definitely a good, easy purchase. Only took a few pictures. They still had the plastic covers on all the ends, so they were in brand new condition. I found a few more items in this store and some of the other stores, but now I'm going to show you everything I found in the first few days. These are the items that I found on my trip from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts. I'll be doing a separate video for the finds I made at yard sales. These are only going to be items I found while at the thrift stores. So first on the list, all 3 of these items came in the first thrift store I stopped at. This is a blue lightsaber, paid 99 cents for this. I normally get around $20 a piece for each of these that I find, and I'll put a screenshot on the screen. This was an amazing find. Very shocked to find it so quickly. An Olympus Infinity Mini camera. These go for about $100. I'll have to test that later, but it's in amazing condition. Next is a Sony Walkman. These normally go around for $35, $40, and as you can see, I paid 49 cents. Definitely a great find. Then I got a Harry Potter 2001 Lego set. It is only missing one piece, and I'll be replacing that. And I'll be able to get around $80 to $90 for this, and I only paid $9.99. I've also been starting to get into selling used phones like this and the whole system to go along with it. I paid $3 for this lot, and I'll be able to part it out and get around $50. And then a few stores later, I found a AT&T 2-handset cordless answering system, and I'll get around $40 for this. Here were some of the hats that I found so far. I got 2 Greg Norman hats. I'll get around $15 a piece for. An Oakley mesh new era cap that's in great shape. I should get around $20 for that as well. Next is a San Antonio Spurs new era hat. I paid $1.99 for this because that was the price for all the hats at this thrift store, and I should get around $20 to $25. This was a rare hat that I was unable to find comps for. It is a Muhammad Ali Platinum Fubu branded hat with the greatest of all time on the back. I put this one at $100. I'm not sure what it'll end up selling for, but I think that's a fair price because it's so rare and very unique. I've been also getting into the replacement parts category. This is a Ninja 48-ounce pitcher. I normally get around $15 to $20 for these. Here are some of the shoes I found early on in the trip. These Gel Venture 7 Asics were in very good shape. They had some dirt on the bottom, but that'll clean up nicely. I should get around $40 for this. I'll have a screenshot on the screen. Next were these Air Monarchs. They also need a little bit of light cleaning, some hair on the inside, but I paid $1.99 for these. I should get between $25 and $30. Next, I have this vintage Reebok tracksuit jacket. Only found the jacket, sadly. This should get me around $30 based on sold comps. Next was an LL Bean jacket. This is a fantastic brand to keep an eye out for, at least that I've found so far. I paid $5.99 for this. I should get between $40 and $50. Next, I found a Polo Ralph Lauren vintage 90s tracksuit jacket. This is white and blue. Has some staining on the bottom of it, but I should be able to get that cleaned out. And I should get around $40 for this. If you find the whole set, the tracksuit, you'll be able to get around $120 for this.